Hello, hello. Welcome back to Reignite Your Soul podcast. I am your host, Laura Blahuda, and I am live here on Instagram, and I am super, super excited for today's guest. I'm actually just in Calgary right now, going on a road trip across Canada, and we just drove 2 days across the prairies, and I'm driving with a friend of mine, and oh my gosh, relationship topic is like the perfect topic to talk about right now because there's so many things moving inside right now that's really like helping us to shift our outer worlds and call in all the manifestations that we want. You know, the new moon's coming up as well, but such a great topic to talk about. So I'm very excited. Phil Jalovec is going to be coming on. He's a relationship coach. He's a really good friend of mine. We actually did a swap. He went through the spiral and he took me through some of his coaching. And it was absolutely incredible. And he's really just all about helping women to come back to who they truly are so that they can create the relationships that they want. And this isn't just relationships with other people, intimately and platonically. It's also about the relationship with ourselves. So we're just going to give him a chance to hop on. But if you guys are on here live with me, say hello. Super excited. I will be checking in on the comments periodically. So if you guys have any questions for Phil or myself that you would like us to answer or anything that you want to share, feel free to put it into the comments and we will take a look at it. And at the end, we may have somebody jump on and ask a question live if anybody wants to. So definitely stick around to the end. We will be sharing this live, or we will be sharing this Instagram live recording on the podcast on Monday morning. So if you don't catch it here, that is okay. We'll keep it on Instagram for a little bit, and then it'll be going on the podcast. But I'll just share a little bit about... let me just see if Phil's joined yet. Oh, there he is. Just going to join Phil in. I think he's joining in here. There we
Hello,
are.
hello.
Hi, I'm so excited. Everybody who's
Thanks
on
for
here, welcome to Phil. And thank you so much for coming on here, Phil.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm super excited because I know I was sharing with you just before this and I started sharing with everybody on the live, so I'll continue my story and then we can get into the episode. But I'm driving across country with a friend of mine right now, and all of these defenses and guards are coming up and we're getting activated and we're like navigating through it. And luckily, both of us are very conscious beings and we have a lot of tools in our toolbox to be able to use and we have great communication. So just before this live, we saw each other in the morning, we gave each other a big hug. And she's just crying and we're like, oh my gosh, like we are both doing such deep work. We're doing such good work. Like, it's just so amazing being able to like witness and see those activations as that deep healing of what's coming to the surface to be transmuted. And it's like relationships are everything, like with other people, with nature, with animals, with like everything. It's just like relationships are everything. And when we can cultivate conscious relationships, which I know that is your jam, it literally makes life so much better. And one more thing I would love to share just before we get into it as well is that it kind of came into my awareness earlier this morning as well, that relationships are like one of the biggest, if not, this is just an observation I've had, there's no stat to it, but relationships are our biggest like traumas. Because ever since we were young, the emotional traumas that are stored within us are from usually other people a lot of the time, right? So when it comes to building relationships, our mind has so many fears and our mind is just a record of the past. So that's why when we listen to the mind, a lot of the time it comes and keeps bringing us back to old places of fears from our past relationships and traumas that we've had. And I know I've been doing so much work coming into the heart space and being able to witness and observe the mind, the stories, the beliefs, all of those things as they're coming up, but then also getting to consciously choose love every single time. And it's not easy. But and we do have those times where we fall out of that place of love. Like there were many times along the road trip where my heart would close and I just wanted to like to create space and distance and not talk. And I allowed myself that space to come back to that safety within my body. But it's like, all of this stuff is coming up for so many of us right now. And I think it's so important to normalize all of this stuff. So I'm just very grateful that you're here. I'm very grateful that we have so many amazing conversations about this stuff. And I'm excited for us to be able to share this with everybody who's listening. So thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me, and hats off to you and your friend. I mean, if I was to make my advice super, super simple in one thing, people need to recommit to themselves and their own development of being a better person, whatever that means for them. If that's going to church, if that's meditating, if that's drinking ayahuasca, if that's going to the gym, if that's doing yoga, green smoothies. And I think, sometimes that journey can be uncomfortable, it can be difficult. So hats off to you and your friend for, wanting to do that. Because how many people do you see that don't do that? Maybe the person you're like, I wish I didn't get in the elevator with this person. They clearly have some inner work to do, or the person in traffic or whatever it is. So yeah, because you said you and your driving cross country, right? And just a lot of stuff's been coming up.
Yeah. Yeah, especially like the last going across the prairies. When we could get out into nature and stuff, it was great because nature is such amazing therapy for both of us. But across the prairies, there isn't many places to stop. So you basically just stop to pull over and pee, and that's it, and get gas. And then you just keep on going because there isn't really anything much besides farmland. It's just very, very straight drive, a lot of farmland, and nothing really too exciting to do it. And it was interesting also, like maintaining the presence and the patience with ourselves as we were moving through all of that stuff, instead of just trying to do what I know I used to do, would be trying to like just skip to the destination and not enjoy the journey. So it was a really great practice. Life is just the most incredible teacher.
Yeah. Yeah, how cool.
Yeah, and so share
Your
you a little
reception
bit.
kind of
Is it cutting out, Phil?
your reception's kind of going in and out.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm headed back to where I'm staying right now, and I
Okay.
can see my car, so I should be back there in about 1 minute, and then I will turn on my Wi-Fi and I'll just park myself on the front porch.
Yeah. Better not. What were you saying? Can you say the question again?
I'd love it if you would just introduce yourself a little bit so that everybody on here who doesn't know you can get to know you a little bit more, a little bit about your journey, and just what made you passionate about relationships and why you decided to become a relationship coach.
Yeah, I mean, in short, I went to a seminar in 2019 while studying psychology. I learned more in like 4 days than I did in, at that point, 2 years of studying psychology. And it kind of left me scratching my head. I was like, I feel like I got ripped off. The seminar was whatever, $600. My education was $50,000 at that point. I was like, this doesn't make sense. And long story, going to more seminars, started working with coaches a couple years later. Oh, there we go, we're back. And I started reading books and seminars specifically about relationships. And I honestly just couldn't believe it. Like when it would say women do this, I'd be like, there's no way. There's no way. That makes no sense. There's no human being that would respond that way. I'd be like, our thing makes sense. And then I'd view it other women. They'd be like, no, that's how women think. I'm like, it can't be. It can't be. We're not that different. We're both kind of the same. Different. And I was just I was, and also part of my, are you back? No. There you are. Okay. Back. But yeah, it really surprised me, and I learned so much about how different we are as men and women. So I kind of got to thinking, like, I'm pretty sure everyone is confused about this. Like, it's not like I went to some seminar or read a book. I was like late in the game and, oh, Phil just figured this out. My first seminar was 24, so 13 years ago. And I just got really passionate, and then I started learning more, studying more. And years ago, I had a mentor say something. Why don't you create a seminar? Why don't you focus on helping women get clear on what they want in relationships? And I was like, no, that doesn't make any sense. And I said, because women already know what they want. And he laughed. I don't know if he knew why he laughed at the time, but he laughed and then said, hey, why don't you go and start doing surveys. So I remember the first survey I did. I don't know if I've told you this, Laura, so you might have inside information. I went to a seminar with a bunch of, I was at a seminar I was attending. I talked to a bunch of women I know who were attending and volunteering, but these are women that probably the average woman had been doing, I don't know, coaching, seminars, reading books, you know, things about their health for, let's say 5, some 10 years. Out of 31 women, how many do you think they could tell me what they want in a relationship? Would you guess?
Maybe like half.
That's what I thought. That's what I think most of the women thought. Out of all those women, which I thought were super well qualified, and it wasn't like it was a reflection on like this class, this seminar, this yoga studio, something's wrong with it or something. But out of 31 women, 4 could tell me what they want.
Wow.
And to me, I'm like, it's got to be 60, 70, 80%, maybe 90. And back then I was a bit more silly or a bit more playful. And women would say something like, well, you know, I don't want a cheater. I don't want someone who's addicted to drugs. I don't want someone who's bad with their finances. And I go, great. So what do you want in a relationship? And they go, and I'm like, no, you told me all the things you don't want or your fears or traumas or whatever. And they're like, well, I told you what I want. I go, what kind of guys do you attract? Phil, I don't know what it is. I can't figure it out. I'm like a magnet for cheaters. And I'm like, really?
Oh,
like,
so funny.
And they'd be like, that shit's not funny. And so I treat that a little different now. But I mean, in a nutshell, whether it's relationships, whether it's business, whether it's our career, whether it's, you know, most people won't even say, I don't want to be, most people won't say linguistically, I want to be thin. I want to be fit. They're going to say, I'm sick of being fat.
Yeah.
You wouldn't get in your car and drive from Toronto to Calgary and say, what do you want to do today? I just don't want to crash. I just don't want to crash. I just don't want to crash. Like, you might crash. And I think in a nutshell, the metaphor I use is like, if where we're going in life is a big windshield, right? And we're in the car of life, we want to look where we're going to go. And that just makes sense. But what happened to a lot of people, men and women, but I would say women even more, is they've been rear-ended a couple times, and while they weren't paying attention, someone hit them from behind. So now they're trying to drive their car, looking at the rearview mirror like this, and they're wondering, why do I keep crashing into stuff in front of me? Well, I'm destined not to get rear-ended again, but I'm absolutely going to get in a head-on accident at some point. And I think that people live their lives. So after I did that exercise, I was really surprised. And I was like, oh, wow, there's really a demand for this. And so my content, so that's kind of like a bit about me. Of why I got passionate about it. I started coaching in 2012 kind of as a hobby. It became an actual profession where I worked for a large coaching company for a couple of years, starting in 2015 or 16. And then I really loved working for that company, but I wanted to kind of do my own thing, my own way, my own content, my own stuff. You know, plant medicine's a big part of what I talk about. It's not for everyone, but it's transformed both my life and your life, and that's how we originally met. Almost seems like, you know, so much longer ago.
I know, it's crazy.
Yeah, but that's kind of the nutshell a bit about me. And then, like I said, if I was to sum everything up in one thing, it's people need to recommit to really who they are and their journey with themselves and what they want. Most people don't really know what they want. That's one of my kind of core 4 pillars. So, yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, it's so true, right? It's just the conditioning that we've received in society is very scarcity based. It's been something that's been coming up for me as well, where I've been recognizing and witnessing and observing these stories or these beliefs that will come up. And they're very scarcity based. And law of attraction, we attract that exact thing that we're putting out there to the universe. I like to say we're like little cell towers, and whatever our thoughts or the energy that we have within is projecting like out to the universe. That's exactly what brings back to us, right? So
great. I've been thinking of this funny thing recently. It's been coming to me. Your ex has a frequency. Like when you think about your ex, that's a frequency you're in. Like, oh, I'm having a really bad day. Oh, I'm feeling overweight. Oh, I'm worried about money. Maybe I should check my ex. Because I've noticed even with me or clients, it's like, it's usually not just, oh, I miss them, or I think we sometimes confuse the word love with attachment. It's like, oh, I'm still attached to them. So it must mean I'm still in love with them. And I think that's kind of an conversation to have with oneself to go, I had love with them, but I'm not in love with them, but I have an unhealthy attachment, and it's 18 months later and I'm still creating a new profile and I'm checking their Instagram. That's something different than love. I would challenge, even though someone may have had love. Where has it showed up for you?
Hmm.
Abundance or scarcity, or some of your friends, things like that, in terms of dating?
Well, I think like for me, it's been really big with understanding the pattern that I picked up from my parents. I think that's been huge for me was being able to see um, like how my mother and father were, and then being able to
Yeah,
break through those behavioral patterns to be able to consciously create new ones. Because I would
yeah,
find that, and a lot of the stuff that I do with the spiral, with the quantum clears, which I think I shared with you briefly about, um, the way when our minds are formed, we have different archetypes. And so the mother and father archetype, we see those archetypes in every person that we see. And with the quantum clears, it collapses those polarities so that we can then consciously create our perception moving forward with all these different archetypes. And so I actually did the quantum clears with myself. I think I did them the end of last year into the beginning of this year, and it was crazy just the projections that I had onto men based off of my family. And they were just like assumptions because it wasn't actually the person that was in front of me. It was just an assumption that my mind created based off of the way that my parents were. And it was so interesting when I understood that and I started shifting that because I was just like, yo, like we don't know, like we can never judge somebody who's in front of us. Like we just never can. We have to ask so many questions to be able to know who that person actually is because we
sure.
don't know who they are. So asking lots of questions to be able to get to know somebody instead of just allowing our mind to go on those stories or those assumptions or all of those things to be able to create that reality, knowing that it's actually coming from what's in front of us instead of some sort of fantasy land. So for me, that was big with that. And when it comes to scarcity, I think just like a lot of like not feeling good enough
Yeah,
were big things. And it just like prompted me to be able to dig deeper into where these things came from and how to shift through them. And really like now being able to have amazing people in my life to mirror back at me exactly the amazing positive traits that are within me. So I think that's been also a big shift as well. Cause I think in the personal development space, there's a lot of like focus on like kind of like what's wrong. Like you were saying, our mind will naturally go to what's wrong. So instead, like really bringing a lot more shift into the play, into the what's going right, because what we're focusing on, we're going to continue finding, and that's going to manifest more in our lives. So it's that delicate balance between doing the shadow work, but then also being able to see all of the good, amazing things that you are, to balance the two and then continue like moving forward toward the things that you want. So I love how you mentioned that as well.
totally. You mentioned not good enough. I mean, if there was a bigger root cause of what's missing or what's out of alignment, not just recommitting the personal development journey, I think that's the not good enough. It might not be active in the moment, but that shows up in every single human being.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm not good enough. I'm too much this. I'm too much that. I'm too old. I'm too young. I'm not enough money. I live in the wrong country. I'm the wrong color. I'm the wrong religion. This thing
Yeah.
happened, or this thing didn't happen to me. Something I should have had a better opportunity. And then some belief about that because I'm different, I'm not going to be accepted. I'm not going to
Yeah,
be loved. And that lives in, I think, every human on planet Earth. The
for
question is, we
sure.
doing well enough, or our external environment matches how we think it should be. So then we kind of think for the moment, oh, this isn't true, but the fear is still being lingering there in the background for everyone, even if you're, you know, very, very, very well off in your life and your mindset and your spirit and your health.
Hmm. Yeah. And so when you have like people come to you, Phil, like what is it that you like suggest for them to do when it is to really help them come out of what they're experiencing to be able to know exactly what it is that they do want in relationships? Because I know that is a mirror to what we actually want within ourselves. So I'm
Yeah,
curious.
no, that's a good question. I mean, I have my core four things, and one of those is creating a vision. Like, I think this really surprised me. It's not radically different, but more men know what they want in an intimate relationship than women do, which there was no way. If I took a 40-year-old woman and a 40-year-old man, and I had 20 of them in a room, I'll probably have two women tell me what they want and five guys. So it's not like the
Hmm.
guy infinitely better, like they all have total clarity. and kind of how it shows up based on our gender or body, you know, just focusing on men and women, it can be different. But the first things I focus on, I kind of break it down to four. I'll do like a super quick version. First thing is, what do you want? And you can kind of break that into two categories, because someone can go, okay, I want him to be 6 foot tall. I want him to have a six pack. I want him to make six figures. And it's like, those things are great, but also those things are going to change. He's still going to be 6 foot tall, but maybe he's going to be hunched over. His six pack isn't going to look as good at 75 years old, or might not be there. So like, what are the core values that's going to be sustainable for your heart and soul to really get kind of the relationship? My view is this way, like, let your soul, let your spirit lead the way, but make sure your ego is taken care of, because you're a human being on planet Earth. So you can, this is so spiritual that I don't need anything around. It's like, I don't know. I haven't figured it out. Maybe I'm not enlightened enough. Like, I don't see it working for hardly anyone. But to get clear on what you want is first of, what do I want? But kind of my joke is, if someone gets exactly what they want in a relationship, but they go, I have the best guy ever, but he's a crackhead. All right. So there's certain things that can ruin everything. Or he's the best guy ever, but he just loves prostitutes and he's a sex addict. All right, that's probably not going to work for 99% of women. Maybe there's some exceptions to that. So also, what don't you want? Because you can get everything you want and have one or two qualities that can really ruin the whole thing. So those are kind of the starting to mold the vision, those two pieces. The next two pieces are what's most important. The third thing is, now you have kind of a clarity. Okay, I want this, 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 this. So that's like, am I really being the person who can attract that type of guy? So said differently is like, who do you need to become? For example, like, let's say I have a vegan client. They've been vegan for a couple of years. They think the world's a better place if they're vegan. This is just a metaphor. And during quarantine, they were stressed and they've been eating cheese. Okay, probably not the end of the world, but they don't feel an integrity with who they need to be, how they want to raise kids, what their beliefs about God and spirituality is. And they want to date a vegan guy, but they're not living that right now. So they got to return to a sense of center. And sometimes it's a new version of you. You know, kind of, if I said it a short way, is like, if someone creates a relationship vision of all the things they want, in short, you got to become that. Or someone become the antithesis of that. If you want a guy who's really, you know, has a balanced masculine and feminine, are you balanced in yourself? Because you're going to attract, you know, it's kind of like the yin and the yang. People are going to go, oh, I don't want someone, you know, this guy has these trauma issues. Well, maybe you do too, and that's why you attracted him. So the third part is, who do you need to become? And then the fourth part of creating that vision is, what am I committed to giving right now? I would say part 3 and part 4. So to recap really quick, what do I want? What don't I want? And then the two most important parts, who do I need to become and what am I committed to giving? Those two last parts are 90, if not 99%. Because when you focus on just living your life, enjoying your family, because sometimes people can come, and it can happen more to women, and it's based on many things, society, like, well, I wish the guy would come and just show up, or when is he going to be here? And there's nothing more attractive than really working on you and living your life and really going for it. And then it's like, oh, now that I'm not focused on relationships, all these people keep coming. Friends, I'm not even on any apps, but guys are finding me on Instagram. But the difference is, I want to date these guys, because women and men generally have different problems. Women generally still have guys interested in them, but they don't like the guy that's interested in them. Guys will sometimes not be able to get a DM, get a response. So kind of different problems. But first, yeah.
So interesting. Why do you think that is?
Which thing? The DM part or the vision part?
The DM part. Like, I guess men are just more assertive.
Men are more assertive. I also feel, this is a huge generalization.
Yeah.
It feels like in a guy's nervous system is we have emotions too, but we're definitely thinking about our sexual needs more and our emotions second.
I found that with men. It's interesting.
Right. It's just like, I'm like, and then most women, do they want sex? Yes. Are they thinking about sex more than their emotional needs? Generally, no.
No.
So I'll say it a different way. It's not true, but it's funny, and I like to have fun. Sex is a need for men, an immediate need, and it's more of a want for women when things are lined up. Because women will be like, well, we have high sex drives too. I'm like, you do, but what mood are you in? I'm like, oh yeah, that's true. because now I'm in a
Yeah.
different mood that I was an hour ago, and now I don't feel like it. Like a guy, he's somehow,
Yeah.
even if he's like just had surgery, he's still kind of in the same mood somehow.
Yeah. It's
So
interesting too, like even just the word sex versus like making love. Cause it's like in my mind, and I'm curious to know your definition of it. Like sex, I feel like is very like almost like unconscious, like not emotionally connected, almost like just going through the motions.
yeah,
Whereas making love, I feel is more that emotional connection. You're actually like intuitively moving like with each other's bodies, more like connected and emotionally like there. You know what I mean?
answer your question with a question. How do you think most men would interpret that?
Oh God, I don't know. That's why I have you in my life.
Like, well, because it's different because most women and men, women are going to want. I mean, would you prefer you initiate sex or your boyfriend, lover, or future husband initiate sex?
Um, I don't know if there is a preference. For
Okay.
me personally, I think it's great when we both do.
Yeah. So it'd be
Like when
50.
you're feeling it, right? Like whenever you're feeling it and you want
Yeah.
to, then that way it gives the opportunity for the other person to say, yes, I'm feeling it or no, I'm not right now.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
find a lot of women prefer if the guy initiates, and some guys will actually not like, well, some guys won't like it if the woman initiates, or some guys will go, she's initiating so much. I mean, also, I guess the funny thing about sex is, for better or worse, men have more physical limitations. Because if a guy, we can get into that too, or semen retention, that's a fun topic. Like when a guy ejaculates, the sex is at least with 98% of men temporarily going to stop for 20, 30 minutes, an hour until the next day in
Right.
terms of the limitations of our body. I mean, that's an interesting thing too. I'd say men's bodies are very wired locally for pleasure, where women's bodies have more bells and whistles or things. Each woman's more different, but their body is really wired for pleasure from head to toe.
Mm-hmm.
Which, like, I get jealous. I'm like, I wish I had a female nervous system. It seems way better. It also comes with different cycles. I might not be jealous of that, but I'm like, it seems way better. Like, studied enough conscious sexuality and tantra and had enough clients and friends practice stuff. Like, it's fairly different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, it's so interesting. I love how too, like you always bring the different perspectives of the men and women as well, because there's so many differences, and then we just go in assuming that it's the exact same as we are. In
Yeah,
general,
it's
in
kind
any relationship, it's totally not.
of, no, I'll tell you a funny story. I was like 8 years old. I wanted a cat, and I thought, and this is kind of the difference of the story, but it's kind of a metaphor, but you find it funny. So I got this cat. I wanted to like, I don't remember if I was wanted to make the world a better place. I adopted a cat rather than getting a kitten. Not, I wouldn't recommend it. So I adopted this very angry, aggressive, like,
Maybe it was a mirror back to you, Phil.
yeah, back then, maybe in my teenage years, sure, I'll go with it. But I don't think I had enough testosterone or enough like emotional problems to be angry yet. But this cat, just, like from the day one, I was like, oh, I have this like terrorist that lives in my under my bed. And I remember I was like, I'm going to teach it some cool things. So I bought it a harness. This is before this was like a thing. I'm like, I'm going to
You
take,
started it.
take him on a walk. How well do you think it worked to take a cat on a walk like a dog?
Sometimes you see it. I don't know.
I'll tell you, it was basically the cat just going like this on its back, and then I finally figured it out. I'm like, all right, we'll walk it on the grass, so at least the grass is smooth rather than like the driveway. And then I'm trying to get it to fetch. None of these dog things worked on the cat. It is true. There are cats that fetch. It does exist. It's not black and white. But I tried to take my cat and think it was a dog. And I think
Yeah.
a metaphor for understanding the sexes, because it is like, for example, it's infinitely more simple for women to understand men than men to understand women. They're both different, but I used to not teach it this way, but I found out, I'm like, oh, it's really that simple. Wow. Like for women can like it's like 5% of the work for women to understand men, but you have to constantly step out of yourself and go, okay, they don't think like a woman. Okay, they don't think like a woman. Because if you put almost like a thing and like an umbrella on top of it, you go, this is what it is. It's like, no, it's this thing. Because women will generally ask the question, like, well, I met this guy and he's really cool, but we live in New York but he's got someone. We met on Tuesday. We had a 30-minute coffee date, and it turned into 4 hours. And then, you know, I really wanted to see him again. I'd never met anyone like this. He checks all my boxes. And then he told me he wanted to see me again, but he said I'm busy. He's busy this weekend because he has guys coming from the LA office to work on a project. And if I ask a room full of women, I go, women, ladies, what does that mean? Like for you, Laura, if you had just that much information, what would you say? What does that mean, what the guy's saying?
I've learned from this, from personal experience, that it means exactly what they say. But this is the funny thing, because my mind, it's so creative that it's like when things are very short, it's like I have a billion questions. I'm like, I want to know. Just tell me more. Tell me more about whatever that is so that I have more information, because my mind will create stories. And it's just like crazy. And I've learned how to not feed into those stories because they're just illusions. But it's true. It comes.
How would have Laura 5 or 10 years ago, if she heard that from a guy, had that great date, and he says, I can't see you for essentially almost 2 weeks? What would pre-personal development Laura 5, 10 years ago, what would she have assumed or said?
It would definitely depend on the context for sure. Like if they were like away or something like that. But if I knew that they were going to be close by and they weren't making it a priority to see me, then I would definitely be hurt by it and be like, wow, I'm not a priority.
But he's saying the other team is in town just for the weekend from another part of the country. We're working on the project just for these 2 days.
Yeah, I feel like a while ago, I definitely would have created stories.
Yeah. If I ask that to a group full of women, I'll get reactions like he has a secret family, he's dating someone else, he thinks my butt is too big, he thinks my butt is small. Like I'll get all these different things, you know, and then I mean, and to be fair, I think it is disproportionate. More women have been lied to by men, especially depending on what culture. Some cultures it's more common.
Mm-hmm.
But the point is, if women don't often say what they mean. And women that are listening right now are going to say, that's not true, Phil. How could you say that? You're sexist. Well, let's try something on for a minute. And you play along with me, Laura. So if you have, let's say I'm from the Midwest. Let's say I'm driving from Milwaukee to Michigan. It's a 5-hour trip. I have my girlfriend in the car. I don't know any of this stuff, or it's a client. And like, I have my coffee in the morning. She says she doesn't want any. We're 3 hours into the trip, and she turns to me and she says, honey, do you want to stop and get a cup of coffee? And I go, no, honey, I'm doing great. We're making good time. We're just going to keep going. And she goes, okay. And then 10 minutes later, she just seems kind of weird. And the guy doesn't know why. She seems kind of like frustrated or angry, or she seems kind of cold or pulling back. Why would that be? Do you know?
I do. And it's
Why?
so crazy because you don't actually say what you mean. It's weird. And it's interesting because I've been doing so much work with I'm doing a lot of work with the chakras, and it's really cool because once you come up to the power center, you'll actually like communicate things a lot more. But then when you come up into your heart and then you come up into your throat, you'll actually communicate things more directly. And it's interesting because I feel like, yeah, a lot of it's just our societal conditioning with the way that we've been raised, where we don't actually speak our truth, and women being so suppressed. And I know I can only speak for myself personally, but I've done a lot of digging into why I would do that and why I would be afraid to actually say exactly what it was that I meant. And a lot of it came down to just one story from my dad. And I was always really loud. I'm an Aries. I'm very I can be very loud, especially when I'm passionate about something and I'm excited, really loud. And he would always say, you're way too loud, and like tell me to be quiet. And that literally stuck into like my subconscious, and it like literally suppressed so much within my expression. And it's been really cool being able to get rid of that, because now I can actually communicate more directly what it is that I want without fear of like the other person on the other end like not liking what I have to say or abandoning me, or all of the like the criticism, the fears that come up from that, which is all just mined from past experiences. So it's been interesting for me to dig into why I had that patterning.
And more women grow up more with an expectation of, this is what a good girl does, this is what you do.
Totally.
Men don't really have that. And you'll even
Yeah.
see women will look at men and go, what did I have? I had a girl I was dating, just a couple dates we parted with. But earlier this year, what did she call me? Oh, she's like, you're so disobedient. And I'm like, that makes sense from a woman's perspective. I'm just saying yes to certain things, no to other things, and I'm kind of going my own path. She's like, what's disobedient? I'm like, well, I don't have to be obedient. Like, but she has a voice of don't, a girl doesn't have her legs like that. She would cross her
Yeah.
legs up or do this. And women have more of that societal expectation that I think can absolutely, like you said, contribute to not speaking their mind. And it's got to be frustrating because in that same car scenario, every woman knows, oh, the girlfriend's asking for a cup of coffee. 98% of single men aren't really sure unless they've actually went and said, I want to understand women for one way or the other. So that brings me to another point. That's one of my 4 points. So we talked about vision, but understanding the opposite sex. Like, life is really hard without understanding the opposite gender. I would actually, a couple years ago, it dawned on me, which is fun. And I don't think most people realize this. We just kind of quietly accept it. I would argue that people have some level of confusion in 50% of all human interactions because it's with the opposite gender. Because it's kind of the cat-dog thing. It's like they kind of understand each other, but not really. And I think God, the universe, whatever's up there, just a freak accident that's working out really beautifully, whatever you want to call it. It's funny because what if there's a deeper divine purpose to, as men and women, we're almost biochemically, emotionally, sexually have a connection or an addiction to each other. We fit into each other perfect. We're kind of the same, but we're also like total opposites. But we also have the capacity to go into each other's world. A guy has a capacity to understand a woman's feeling. A woman has a capacity to communicate directly. So it's really about creating more of what I call an unbalanced balance, where you start to balance yourself out. And the dating advantages are ridiculously unfair. If you're a woman who understands men and you understand a couple things, you can go on a few dates with a guy and stand out different than 90% of women. And vice versa. If I'm a guy and I talk about on the first couple of dates how important it is, and I get what it means as much as I can in my limited male body of what it is like for women to feel safe, I have a huge advantage that woman across from the dinner table has probably never heard from another guy on a third date talking about safety from a woman's perspective, because most don't know. So yeah, coming into each other, I call it like being a male or female translator, because it is kind of like we're speaking different. Like, I live in Colombia, people wouldn't think it's rude, but it'd be weird if I just walked up to everyone and started speaking English. Sure, if I'm in certain neighborhoods, some of them are going to speak English, but I'm not speaking their language. So I really feel it's our duty. And I'd actually say women are probably more interested in it because they genuinely have more of a desire to be understood. Because they'll say, oh, I want to be understood. I want to be understood. So the best way to be understood is to start be understanding. Become what you want.
Yeah. Yeah. The feminine energy is also so nurturing and so supportive and caring that it wants to be able to understand. Like, there's a desire of understanding.
Yeah, I think there's more of an
self and outwardly toward your partner or the relationships you have too.
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. And I can definitely attest to that, because like about how it can completely change everything. Because even just that one thing about understanding that when men say something, it's exactly what they mean.
Generally,
that has changed my life drastically. Because if you think about it, if you text me something and then I have like two options, either my mind goes into crazy stories, which can go any which way, which isn't even about reality, which usually will trigger, like, depending if it goes like positively, like your mind can create stories, or it can go fear-based stories. If it goes fear-based stories, it literally like will trigger the emotional anxiety, the worry, the fears, all of those things. And how do you think you show up in that state? There's no wonder most men run. It's right. It's no wonder, right? But when you understand that cycle, both from a men's perspective, understanding that, as well as the women understanding that about men, it drastically changes everything. And so now, even just knowing that, like when I see something, and this goes for men and women now, I didn't just take this for men, but even when women say something, I literally just take it exactly as it is. And if I have extra questions, I will ask them. Like, I am a huge question asker, and it provides clarity, because even just, which I want to get back to eventually, about the sex versus making love question, because he didn't answer it. But like the different perceptions, right? And when we can have a conversation to understand the perceptions that each one has, a lot of the time it's like we have the exact same intention or meaning, but it's just worded differently in the language piece. So it's just like more conversation to be had to understand you're actually on the same page a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Or that
Yeah.
you're not on the same page, and then you can come onto the same page.
Yeah. And we need to learn how to understand. I mean, like a dog. Have you ever seen like a dog and a cat that live in the same household, but they just never have figured each other out?
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm the human. I'm like, one of them's got to go. Like, my kids are, which one do we love more or has seniority? One of them's got to go. And I mean, there's people that are in marriages like that. I remember when I first started to learn this stuff and I would teach it to people, some people get really mad because I'd be like, oh, you could have a relationship vision. They've been like, I've been with this guy for 40 years. Like they've been the cat and dog fighting each other for 40 years, but they've tried to make it seem cute. And it is cute, but it doesn't seem like a pleasant.
And it's been a norm in society to have, I know, like,
yeah.
Like for parents to be like literally like cat and dog, and like that's the norm that we've been
that's how mom and dad
been raised with. Yeah. And also going back to what I said about like the projections that we have of the different archetypes, it's like when we understand that as well, have patience with yourself, have patience with other people. Like we're all doing the best we can to figure out our life in this new conscious way of more understanding of how humans actually function than ever before, right? We're literally we're on the verge of creation of like new relationship dynamics where they're not codependent, where they're not unhealthy, where they're not toxic, you know? It's like we're creating this new paradigm and it's exciting, but we need patience.
Totally. And also the patience and understanding. I 1,000,000% agree. And I would actually second that. We probably need it now more than ever. It doesn't matter how much money you have, where you live in the world, the average person in the last 2.5 years, doesn't matter your beliefs about COVID or the government or who cares, doesn't really matter. The average person has been under more stress than they've been under. I've had more friends saying, hey, I just lost my job. Hey, we're downsizing. Hey, I'm not part-time. I didn't expect this.
Yeah.
You know, hey. And I mean, I would also challenge, not to sound negative, does the average person think it's going to get better in the next couple of years or get worse, or you're going to have to, I think the solution is we have to rise. Like you have to become to go, you know what, I'm going to start. I know I got fired. I got to start my own business. Like these are some, you know, the U.S. hasn't announced it yet publicly, but just went into a recession. So where people got to get more resourceful. But that being said, we've kind of been on a lower level of thinking or energy, whatever you want to call it. So to have a different level of grace, compassion, and understanding. Because a few years ago, things were different. And it's not that the external world equals our internal world, but it does play an impact. And does the average person have the skills, tools, and resources and the emotional wherewithal to show up despite of external circumstances, despite of whatever it may be? Mm-hmm. And that's second what you said, you know, with understanding, patience, and compassion. It's never been more important than in probably.
Yeah. Yeah. And like our outer world is actually like a projection of what is going on in our inner worlds, right? But when it's like understanding that when we see that, it's like that's our opportunity to tune within to what piece of that is activating something within us so that we can dive deeper into it, gain a greater awareness. And then once we shift that, then we then get to project a new thing out on the world, which that's what creation is, right? We're seeing what's in front of us. We're taking it inward to find out what pieces within us. Because even if you think about our consciousness and like our minds, when our whole subconscious mind is just taken in when we were young, 0 to 7, it's just taken in. So all of those things in our outsider world are within us, whether we want to acknowledge them, accept them, and love them or not. And that's like a huge journey that everybody's on right now, is being able to see all those things that trigger us in the outside world, reflecting them inward to what is activating us, to be able to love what's inside of us, which is the whole self-love thing. And then once we come from that healed, whole, like fully loved unconditionally space within, like we are whole, we are full exactly as we are. It's just our human minds that think that we're not healed or we're not all these things. But once we can do that, then we then see the world through a completely different lens. And it is like you're saying, it's like there's going to be right now, there's going to be people that choose to evolve, or there's going to be people that choose to stay in the old patterning and cycles, which just doesn't work in this world anymore, right? And getting so much tougher for people that aren't evolving. So the people that are evolving, it's really exciting because it's like we then get to bring all of these new outlooks, we get to bring these new ideas, we get to bring new creations, new businesses to move the world forward, because we can see all the problems in the world. It's not a lack of us seeing the problems and having solutions, right? It's just a lot of the big corporate systems are so bogged down because there's too much complexity in those systems, that it's like we need to create the new systems that are going to come up and then be those new big systems that are coming up that will lead the world in a proper way, that is going to be bringing more unity instead of like segregation, and bring more love instead of like separation, right? So
That's
it's like
the billion-dollar word right now is unity. I think the world needs more unity more than ever. I look at the U.S. especially and see how divided it is around politics, around vaccines, around whatever. Like, and it's, I think it'd be nice to think we can change a country overnight, but it's how can we create unity if I have a 10-minute conversation with a couple that's been married and maybe they have the same intention but opposite beliefs. They both believe in health, but they have opposite ways to get there. They both believe in freedom, but they're on opposite sides of politics, and to show that they have more in common, and maybe there's a deeper sense of what unites them than what they're telling themselves in the moment, or what then it's really, and what then programming is. I don't use the word psychology much anymore because I think it's an inaccurate word. If people are getting programmed by TV or another thing, to not pick up your social media for the first hour of the day is something I've been doing. I've been trying usually 2 hours, because then you just get programmed like, oh, recession's coming. Oh no, I didn't have my celery juice. I haven't went for a walk in the sunshine, and a recession's coming. Oh, it's going to be a shitty day. Ah, it's not even 7:30, and it's already a bad day. And it's like, okay, but if you just listen to Abraham Hicks or Joe Dispenza or whoever you like, it can feel, or just take a walk in nature and listen to, or don't listen to anything. It's really how programming ourselves is also huge. Like you said, you've probably seen that personal development photo. It's two people in a bus, and one guy is looking, there's a mountain, and he's looking at just the mountain, and it's just like a rock, and the other guy's looking at the other side, and he's looking at trees and a river. Or there's a similar one, a prison one. It's the same idea, where it's two prisoners. One guy, all he sees is bars on his window, and the other guy, all he sees is all the beauty outside from his prison cell. The river, the moon, and probably both those people, or at least the guy feeling bad, he's going, well, I'm in prison. All I see is bars, of course. There's nothing else. Yeah. It's like, well, the guy doesn't even see the bars.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting because the human journey can feel a lot like a prison when you start understanding all this stuff. I know I like the grief cycle. You definitely have to go through the grief cycle a couple times, I feel, with that one, as you begin awakening to this information, because it's like, oh my gosh, I am an exact reflection of what my parents created me to be, but that wasn't even who I wanted to be. And then it was like, oh my gosh, I am in a cage. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I was angry. And then I'm like, Mom, Dad, like, what the fuck? How didn't you know this? Why didn't you know this? But then I'm like, no, wait, they only knew because their parents didn't know. Da, 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 da. Right. And I'm like, okay, this is our chance to change things. Like, this is an exciting time to be alive because we are seeing this. But it's like, it can feel like a cage sometimes, and it gets fucking tough when you are experiencing all of these old patternings come up. Like, I was sharing the car ride the last few days going across the prairies. Like, I have enough awareness to be able to witness these old behavioral patterns come up. And I can witness that it's not me or who I want to be. However, it's old programming. And I still have to ride the wave of moving through that and experiencing it. And it's not easy, especially when you have that awareness. Like literally yesterday, at one point, I was like, oh my gosh, like sometimes I wish I could go back to sleep and not know, you know, like sometimes it feels that way because it can feel really heavy and painful when you're experiencing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, there's kind of I call it the temporary illusion of ignorance is bliss.
Yeah, totally.
I don't want to be, no, I know what that was like before, but it's more comfortable maybe in the moment. It's not as deep, or doesn't have as much potential for growth.
Yeah. Yeah. But then on the other side, like looking at like, I like those two kind of things, even just like driving, like being able to see all the wildflowers on the side of the road and the clouds in the sky and like all of the beautiful scenery. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is life. Like this is presence. This is like the beauty of what life has to offer. So it really is those two perspectives. There's no right or wrong to any of it. It's just about witnessing and experiencing and continuing to shift all of these patterns. And I think we honestly, as humanity, we have a responsibility to actually start diving into this stuff. It's like gone are the days of having shame for having like shit come up or having addictions or having all of these things. You know, we've been doing our best coping with what we've been given. And
Yeah.
now is the time for us to just take that radical responsibility and just keep moving forward and linking arms with the people who are also seeing it and also wanting to move through it, because it's not easy like to be able to open up to this stuff, but when you have people that are on similar journeys, like you can get through anything together. Truly you can, because you just, I find that the universe is so funny. A lot of the time something will irritate me within somebody else and I'm like, oh, like whatever, and then it comes around full loop. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, say that again, Phil.
I'm sure it has nothing to do with you, whatever irritates.
Oh, it's all about me.
Yeah.
All of it. But then it comes around full loop and then somebody will do that same thing to me and I'm like, okay, I understand now.
Get it. Damn. Okay.
Yeah. And it's like,
I'd come up in the last week or two where I've been like, oh, that's a reflection of me. Usually like I'm aware of it. This time I'm not aware of it. All right. Like, so I have a new part of me to understand, or a new problem to solve, or a new limitation to break through, or yeah.
yeah. And one thing I'd love to mention with that too is like the whole mirror thing to what we have to look within, it can almost be detrimental sometimes. So knowing that when this stuff comes up, there's no timeline. You don't have to fix things. You're not broken. It doesn't need to happen today,
Yeah.
you know, because like a lot of the time before I would put so much pressure on myself to try to get to the bottom of what this was. And it wasn't an enjoyable process. And when we don't put a timeline or expectation, it's just like an awareness. Oh, thanks for bringing that up. Okay, now let life do its thing. Let the universe do its thing to bring in the things that you need in order to move through that thing. But it's like we're so supported by the universe that we will never understand how divinely guided we actually are here on this planet. It's insane.
Totally. And it's weird. I think when we try to solve something in the moment, it's almost like we're not accepting that it might take longer. So by not accepting it, we're actually creating more of it. I had a couple of these ceremonies, and we've both been there with ayahuasca, where it was showing me if you accept something, a lot of it will instantly dissipate. I'm like, oh, no way. I've been doing that.
That happened to me during a mushroom trip on my birthday.
I'm going to wrestle it to the ground. I'm going to solve it. Like, those things are valid. But if I just accept it like, hey, this hurts, or hey, I'm insecure about this. No, I'm not insecure. It's like, all right, here you go. More insecure. And it's kind of like whatever you say no to, you ultimately say yes to. So you go, I'm not that way. I'm not that way. It's going, you're that way. You're that way. You're that way. And then it's like, oh God, this feels so much worse, versus going like, hey, this breakup really hurt. I'm really mad I made that decision and I lost my money. You know, I'm really sad my parents are going through a divorce, rather than going, no, it's not happening. It's not happening.
Yeah.
Like, acceptance really helps in a huge way. Gracias, Gabi. Ciao.
Yeah, like honesty. Like I find too, vulnerability and honesty, those have been two big things for me, to be like vulnerable and sharing like the pieces of myself that I've had to be really honest with, and knowing that there's nothing to hide by sharing those things with other people, because we all have those things within us. And when we can actually share from that vulnerable place with that honesty, it's like
Yeah.
it provides that piece of being able to have that acknowledgement and the understanding on the other side as well, so that we can then hold compassion for the other people and hold that person in a space of love, while also holding ourselves in a space of love.
There you go. That can be a trickier one, but the more important one, where it's like, oh, I can be loving with them, but no, I still got to do it faster. I still got to have pressure. I still got to push myself. And it's like, you know, I used to hear this phrase. It's an NLP phrase. It says, everyone is doing the best with the resources they have. And I used to really detest that phrase. And I'll tell you why. And there's a slightly upgraded version that my teacher, Steve, taught me. And it's slightly different, but it changes everything. People are doing the best with the resources they have access to right now. So you may have read the book, you may have known to be loving, but that person is not in a loving state right now. So they do not have access to these resources. So they're angry, they're frustrated. Because I mean, we all had that time where like, it's like, God, I know better. Why did I do that? I haven't yelled like that in a relationship in years. It's like, okay, so you have those resources, but something happened where your needs weren't being met. You were afraid, you were insecure, you're not feeling good enough, or in the moment, you didn't have access to those resources, even though they're somewhere inside of you.
Yeah.
Versus, because that was something I struggled with. I'm like, I already went to this seminar, but I still sometimes make the same mistake that I learned not to do from this seminar. It's like, okay, I'm not in that space in the moment. And it's just part of it is just is conditioning this stuff. There's nothing like the game of life.
Yeah.
to
That's
learn, and we're kind of all winging it and figuring it out, no matter how much
totally.
money, how famous we are, if we're single or married, even if we're a coach or not, because I think coaches can sometimes get into the trap of like, I'm here to save everyone, and I don't have problems. Like, I know I created after a breakup, like I'm not supposed to feel bad. And I'm like, well, good luck with that. Like I'm just, and I read these things from coaches. Yes, I did this process, and I broke up, and with 12 hours, I was totally healed. I'm like, man, either that's yes, or I need to learn that process. I'm not sure which. But you can. There's something to having your human experience and going through the range of emotion, the range of pain, but not living there and living there less. What used to be a breakup that took 6 months, that now your next one is 3 months, that now it's, oh wow, I really reconnected myself in 6 weeks. And it's not finite like that, but just to be, not to be perfect, just to be a little better and a little better.
Mhm. Yeah. Beautiful. Amazing. So I'm just going to go through the comments here. I know Phil has been in the comments here. Thank you, Phil, for being on here with us. We see you and we love you. I'm going to read some of the comments that he shared. To see your center and attunement, this is a test from the divine. Oh, it totally is. Understanding is such grace. I can't wait for the embrace of effortless action amongst consciousness. Yeah, I know. Just like where it's just so easeful. It's been my words recently, like ease and grace. Ease and grace with everything in my life. It's happening. Um, I don't know if anybody that's on here live wants to pop on here with us. I think we can do 3 people now, but if you want to request to join anybody on here and you have any questions or anything that you would like to contribute to this conversation, you're more than welcome to pop on here with us. So I'll just kind of put that out there to you guys. And
Albert just,
sorry, say that again.
you know Albert? Have you met Albert?
No, I haven't.
He's a really cool dude. And we met at La Ceiba, where I meet like half of my friends.
Amazing.
Or some kind of ceremony, but mainly La Ceiba.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Ayahuasca changed my life forever. That was actually, guys, that was how I met Phil. I don't think I shared that story with you guys, but I met Phil at an ayahuasca ceremony. The one that I went to was my very first ceremony that I've ever done. My friend Alex, she went through, did a ceremony, and like I could literally see the behavioral shifts within her, not just in the mental space, but actually in like her physical, the way that she was showing up in life. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I don't know what this is, but I need to do it. And at that point, I feel like I was so naive to anything. And I was just like, it's going to be great. I'm going to go through. I'm going to break through all my limiting beliefs. I'm going to meet a new person on the other end. And then I went through it. And oh my gosh, 5 days of it completely rocked my world and shattered everything that I knew to be true. And it was like a rebuild from that process. And that was the end of 2019. And that was when I met Phil, was at that ceremony. And I remember, this is super funny, but Phil's like the loudest puker ever you'll ever meet.
Yeah, that's true. I'm like a dragon. Yeah,
You are.
it's rare. There's some people that beat me, but it's rare that someone can puke as I've tried to puke quiet because I've seen other people do it. I've seen Keenan do it. I've seen Danny do it. I've seen Henry do it. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do that. I'm like, I need a couple more years or another decade or something.
Yeah, Phil's intense with his ayahuasca. I was just hearing that
a little quieter now. I think maybe I had more to get rid of back then.
Phil is the ceremony.
Brother.
Yeah.
Did you want to do what was it? It was sex and lovemaking?
Yeah, anything you wanna share on the topic, sex, love, relationships.
Well, you were asking about phrases, weren't you? Kind of like what they mean, how it feels.
Oh, so sorry, say that again, Phil.
Yeah. Well, I know we just got a question from Jessica as well. I'm going to jump back to this in a minute. She said, any suggestions for strengthening communication in a relationship between a man and a woman? I would say the first thing is desire, to actually have, and sometimes it can be only one partner that has the desire. Because a woman can say, how can we increase communication? A guy can say, how can I have more sex? And I think it's to talk to the other person. If the person has an appreciation of your world, wow, I don't get this communication thing, but this really means a lot to my partner. I want to provide this for her. Or wow, he really doesn't feel loved. He's a real physical touch guy. So sex means something to him different than it means to me. I want to help share that with him. So I would say starting there, and then starting to learn just how different we are. I mean, most people are getting frustrated that their dog's not behaving like a cat or their cat's not behaving like a dog. And that's literally, I don't know, 95% of human beings on planet Earth, from my experience, probably much more. Where we're really confused by the opposite sex, and women are thinking something meant something that a guy didn't mean, because a woman would mean that, but a guy just means I'm busy next Tuesday, just means I'm busy next Tuesday. It doesn't mean I don't love you, or you're not pretty, or I'm finding someone else, or I'm going to leave you. So I would say the first thing is a genuine, heartfelt desire to be there for the other person. For example, if that's you, Jessica, or a friend, or something you're living, or a theoretical question, if you're telling your partner that, and he goes, okay, how can I provide that for you? I want to give that to you. Because haven't we all been in the situation where you ask for something and it just feels like a chore from the other person? Where they're like, oh, I need to do more? And it's like, and then also the kind of the more uncomfortable question is to ask, how am I showing up? And are they looking at this as a chore, but that's the way I treat them, so I'm getting the same thing I'm putting out. But yeah, heartfelt desire and understanding would be the first thing, and then also initiating the conversation. Because there can be communication problems which the woman is aware of. She won't say anything, and she's hoping the guy will figure it out. And if a guy hasn't been trained in understanding women, I can guarantee you he probably won't figure it out. He's just going to say, I don't know why my relationship went to shit. I don't know why we're not having sex. I don't know why she's mean. And it's got to be frustrating as a woman, because a woman will look around and go, 50% of human beings would figure this out. Well, they're women. So it's like, again, we wouldn't get mad at our PC that we can't download a Microsoft thing that's not compatible. And so it's really that way until you create software that talks to each other. So I hope that helps.
Yeah. Yeah. And the whole piece about like that desire and that care, I find too, a lot of it comes down to us having, when we take care of ourselves first as that number one priority, we have the capacity to be in the twos and in the relationships. So then we can then offer like our time and that desire piece that you were saying, to be able to actually offer that to our partner or to our relationships. But when we're capped ourselves, we just don't have the capacity to do that. So then we just close doors, right? So it really is, it's like when we can master our own inner worlds, we can then do the twos. But the relationships and doing twos, as I call them, is literally put on a like pedestal in society, where it's like, this is where you need to be, is in a relationship, right? But it's like, you can't have the relationships that are healthy until we master the ones. And yes, relationships are learning experiences, but when we really take that inner piece, like with like seriousness and like understanding that the way that we treat ourselves is the way that we treat other people, right? And when we can understand that, then our relationships are going to thrive in such brilliant ways.
Absolutely. And you hit it on the head. I mean, that's what it comes down to, is that commitment to our own self-worth, our own relationship with ourselves. Have you ever heard the quote that if you don't heal from what or who cut you, you're going to bleed all over people who never cut you?
It makes sense, right? The brain, it's the mind. It's just record of the past. And when it's holding on to all of these fears, then we're just going to keep projecting it onto everybody in front of us. And it's just going to keep that continual pattern of hurting and hurt through the world. So it's like, once we get to the bottom of those things and have this understanding, we can then stop that cycle and start coming from that place of love. That's
totally
great. Okay, so we have another question. Do you believe most relationships last longer than they should because people don't know how to let go?
Oh my God. Yes. Jesus Christ, yes. I've been one of them. I shouldn't say I've been one of them. I've been that person multiple times. Well, I think they don't know how to let go, or they have these beliefs like, I'll tell you, I think one of the hardest ones is wherever you're at in your journey, if this is the best you've gotten, and it's still not nearly what you want. Like, I'll see women that are settling for 20, 30, 40% of what they want. But if they went from 40% and the last guy was 12%, they're like, but this is pretty good. Based on their past references, it is. But is it really what fills them up? And I think the more uncomfortable question is the person being the person they need to be to attract the kind of track they want? That takes a huge level of honesty to go, you know what, I'm with this guy because I'm not showing up for me. I have to show up for me. I need to, and you know, someone just reached out to me yesterday. Hey, can you help someone break up? I'm like, I'm never going to tell someone to break up. But if someone needs some coaching, and unless there's physical violence, like people need to come to that decision. And it's really looking at, you know, what if this is as good as it gets? What if I leave and all I can find is worse things? I guarantee if you leave any relationship and you work on you more, you commit to healing, to getting clarity, to your body, your mind, your spirit, you will find something better. And if you really commit to that and even go, hey, so this relationship for 2 years, you know, age can be a challenge, or women are like, hey, I'm 40, I got to get pregnant like tomorrow. To go, hey, listen, you've been in this relationship for 2 years, take 90 days just to be with you and to commit with you for like never before. Take 6 months and you'll be shocked at the level of difference. As long as you're really into you, if it's just a hobby, yeah, I read a book, you know, once every 6 months, that's not going to do shit. But if you really go, I'm going to make myself uncomfortable. And it's different for everyone. I'm going to listen to podcasts. I'm going to read books. I'm going to hire a coach. I'm going to go to a therapist. I'm going to do a session with Laura. I'm going to align my chakras. I'm going to eat different. I'm going to stretch. You will find people that are at a very different level. 100%.
Yeah, massive.
It's scary. Like, I think a lot of people, I mean, I'm not like the relationship masochist, but I personally love to see people break up. Because when I see people break up, I see a seed being planted of going like, finally she can have what she's been talking about for years. You know, because I'll see friends, whatever, people that aren't clients. I love to see people. I'm equally as excited about seeing someone break up almost as I am as seeing them get engaged. And I think it's just, I mean, it's kind of what you were talking about earlier, the scarcity abundance. Like, what if I don't find anyone better? What if this is the... And I mean, I don't want to sound overly simplistic, overly general, but committing to your relationship with yourself, whatever you want to call it, your spiritual journey, your personal development journey, committing to your body. I mean, really somewhat of a balanced mind, body, spirit, emotions. You will, may take a little time, but you'll absolutely find different quality of relationships. I mean, to the point where I don't know why it surprises me, but even when I'll see it in my own life, I'll see it in friends and clients, I'll be like, wow, this is a whole new level. And where that people look back like, why was I scared to leave him 6 months ago? Why did I tolerate this bullshit for 2 years? Like, I could have just been going to seminars and reading books and doing things to, you know, soothe and heal my soul and what hurt me in the past and trauma and meditate, and I could be here. It's like, wow, I wish I would have known sooner.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's definitely that piece and letting go too, even energetically. Like, when we're holding stuff energetically in our field, we don't have the capacity to invite in new things. And you see that a lot of the time where people are wanting to bring in, but we're not diving into the density of what's in our field to release it and let it go so that we can, hi, Joe.
What's up,
We have
dude?
to get you on for a podcast episode. Message me back. So awesome. Yeah, where you've got to actually like let go of all the stuff so that you can call in those new things. So I agree with everything you just shared, Phil, and that question was such a great question.
Thank you. Yeah. And I think it's important to have different things to let go, because sometimes we don't know what to do. Like, remember when I given you testimonials for the, I forget the name, is it called Spiral? What is it called?
Spiral, yeah.
Spiral. Because we would do things and it'd be like, well, what did Laura do? I'm like, I don't really know. I just feel better and I'm not worried about this thing. Like, if you're like, what specific result did it produce? I'm like, I can't really pinpoint it always. But like, it's going, hey, I'm going to start a meditation and prayer practice. I can't keep thinking about my ex, so I'm going to take, you know, walks at night. I'm going to do one that really helped me, that I really believe in. I have a friend who's like fanatical about it. He does it every single day, is cord cutting. That's a really one. You don't need a coach. You don't need to go to a seminar. You can go on cord cutting. It sounds esoteric, I know, like, but there's something to it where you actually have some type of connection. Yeah. Actually, I started doing cord cutting. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, Laura. I would always thought to do cord cutting in the belly button area, but I learned it this new way to do cord cutting in every chakra, in the front and then in the back. And then also I came up with my own version. I'm like, man, my thoughts are just getting the best of me. I'm like, all right, I'm going to do just like mental BS cord cutting. So I would cut, 8 different things. And sometimes for a while after a breakup, I did that every day for a month. And then I even started doing it for my ex. Like, I want her to feel free of me on the other end. So I'm doing it on behalf of her because somebody had some intuitive download and he said, hey, you should do it for her. I'm like, all right, if it helps her, even though we're not talking or we're, not together, I'm happy to help and whatnot.
Yeah, and I
But
will share something about that too, is just like energetic permission, right? Because we're all so connected that it really is like from a moral standpoint, only do your own and ask her if she does want it done. Just because,
yeah,
yeah, just because we are all so energetically connected. I've been learning over the last few years like how tuned in I am to energies and like what I can actually see. And relationships, people, like those cords are so real. Like, especially like when you go into meditation, you can feel where these cords are and what's attached to you, and how many people are either, especially when you're a bright light and you're doing good things, there are like energies that can attach to you, and a lot of it may even be subconscious from the other person's means, but it is where it does attach, and it will, like when you learn how to do cord cutting and you really learn how to master your own energy and also have the awareness around the flow of energy out and in. That's why people are tired in society. We don't all need coffee and all of this stuff. It's because we have so many energetic leaks that are draining us. And then we go to coffee and all these external things in order to fix an internal problem. Right. So it's like when we can understand and start gaining awareness around that. And I'm still learning it all for myself, but I will definitely put up programs and stuff like that once I have more experience with it. But it's been incredible on my own journey being able to recognize that and really to be able to amplify that flow of out and in, because we have the abundance of energy here on this planet. Like, it's not from a lack of energy, it's not from a lack of love, it's not from a lack of all of these things. Everything that we need is here presently available in abundance. It's just our ability as humans to give and receive, right? And a lot of the time in society, we're very good at giving, but when it comes to receiving, there's blocks. But then there can also be like some with giving as well too. So it's just about that inner awareness of where we are at individually as humans, because every human being is different with based off of their past experiences, what they've been through, past life stuff. Like there's so much stuff that comes into play when it comes to your energy.
yeah. No, and I agree with the energetic permission. When my buddy told me that, he's like, hey, you've been cutting your cords for a month. I just, I have a belief that I think most people, myself, I mean, all of us, we need structure, rules, discipline. I also think in the people that have really made a big dent in the world have had to take the current rules and break them and create new rules. So, like, as a generalization, I totally agree. I would normally never do that, but it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't possible for me to talk to her. And I'm like, I trust my buddy's intuition. I'm going to do it this time. And I was like, but I also, I kind of have my gray area where I set an intention. Hey, this isn't my idea. I'm not doing this for me. I don't want to interfere. I don't want in her life. Like, it's not like I'm not trying to manipulate something. Cause you could do it like, I want to cut the cords to make sure they don't sleep with anyone else and they're impotent. Like,
Totally.
some people have set like voodoo doll intentions. I'm like, that's different.
Yeah, it's real. It totally is. Yeah. And I mean, your intention's everything, right? And it's like you can even like in Reiki, like distance Reiki, like you can tap into the soul of the person and gain permission that way too. So it doesn't necessarily have to be in the physical, and like you'll know whether it's a yes or no. And if it doesn't feel in your body that it's a yes, then it's not a yes, and just honor that. But if it felt clear for you to do it, then
That's
it's
it. I generally,
incredible.
I kind of agree. I kind of just assume it's a no. And I mean, in that particular scenario is different because I've done that on the other end. I remember having a breakup many years ago, probably 7 years ago. I had this really great spiritual coach I worked with, and this wasn't my finest moment, but hopefully the audience can hear my intention and my learning. And it was so healing for me. I paid the coach for extra sessions, and I said, would you be willing to reach out to my ex-girlfriend and give her a free session, but it's actually for me? And at the time she said, yeah. And then a couple months later, she's like, I really shouldn't have done that because then I was being dishonest. I was out of integrity. You were kind of manipulating it. I'm like, you're right. I messed up. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it was good. But what's the old saying? The road to hell is paved with good intentions. I was still, I wasn't trying to do it to my benefit of like, come back to me and be with me. But I'm still somehow manipulating something in her life, for better or worse, that wasn't honorable, wasn't ecological, that I learned from 7 years ago. I'm very different now, but Yeah, it's really easy if it's like a parent who's sick and you go, hey, mom, I know you think this energy stuff is weird. Will you do it? Yeah, I'm really sick. Do whatever you want. Like, go ahead.
Totally.
I'm gonna do some with chakras while I'm in Colombia, you're in Chicago. Go for it. Like that's very different where you got actual permission. So yeah,
Hmm.
use one's discretion.
Yeah, for sure. Amazing. Well, anything else that you would like to share before we end this off?
Yeah, one thing. Just how incredibly important it is to heal from past hurts. Also, so you don't get stuck in a loop, you'll never be healed from everything in a way. In the sense of like, well, I have more. No, I got more seminars to go. No, I got to drink ayahuasca 700 times and take mushrooms again because I'm not healed enough. Like, get in the car and get driving. The problem is, and I see this more with men and women in the journey of self or healing. Women have been in the car and they've been driving a few hours and they're dating a guy who's afraid to put gas in the car. And they're going, I don't know why this doesn't work. I'm like, well, he's still talking about his divorce from 10 years ago. You've done work on yourself. Have you done as much as you wanted to? No. Could you do more? Sure. No reason to beat up on yourself, but you're in the car. You're on the path. This guy won't even get in the car. And then it's frustrating, like, well, maybe I should change my life to please him. But he's still saying, I'm so afraid from what hurt me, I can't go with you. And
Hmm.
you're not saying she's perfect, but it's like he's not meeting you close to where you're at. And that sucks. And especially for a woman probably in from 35 to 42, where she goes, I've been with this guy a year, 2 years, 3 years. I thought this was the guy I was going to have kids with. And women will say the same phrase. He took the best years of my life. And the sobering, uncomfortable thing is he didn't. You gave them to him and you needed to, and that's the only way you can take your power back is going, hey, I learned, I'm going to figure this out and move forward.
Yeah.
And again, it goes back to that scarcity abundance thing. And I'm not a woman. I don't know what it's like. I just turned 37. Would my life experience be radically different if I was 37 and I wanted to have kids? It would. I'd go, okay, I would like to have kids in the next 5 years, which I would, but I don't have to. So whether it's healing things in relation to your past hurts, stuff with your family, I mean, I'm overwhelmingly convinced you'll keep attracting a lot of the same problems, maybe different faces without healing. And there's
Yeah.
so many ways to heal. Do you need to do ayahuasca? No. Is it amazing? Yeah. People can do things like Joseph was just on here, breath work, uh, meditation, Joe Dispenza stuff, whatever. You can actually be with a new partner and have, I've seen this, I've experienced this with partners where they've been abused or raped, that actually having healing sex with a safe man who you love, not someone for a one night stand probably, can actually be so healing to sexual abuse. However you're getting healing to look into, and it's something I'd like to write a book on because I'm so fascinated by what I call miraculous healings. Joe Dispenza is one of them, plant medicine is one of them, breath work, tantric sex, where people have an experience where they're like, I don't know what happened, but I'm different. Like I cleared out big, big, big stuff. So people have to heal. And that, I'll close with that. That's kind of my core four. If you're looking what to do to make your relationship, your life better, recommit to your relationship with yourself, your sense of self-worth. Uh, get clear on what you want. Come to an upcoming event of mine, work together, find something online, go on my page, get clear on what you want, heal from past hurts. And most women really want a guy that understands them. So commit to understanding men. I will promise you, ladies, whether you think it or not, with a couple quick steps, men are infinitely, and you're going to say I'm biased, I might be a little, but I found it to be consistently true. Men are infinitely simpler to understand from a woman's perspective than men are from women's because of how we operate. Because guys, she can go, oh, he just means what he says all the time. Oh, that's it? Like I don't have to decipher his riddle language or meaning or what does he mean or is he this or that? And also that can again come from healing to go, I dated so many guys that lied to me. I can't trust what he's saying is true, so I don't know what he means. That's a different problem. But those are my four things. And yeah, recommit to you and your personal development journey like never before. That's my general advice to just about anyone. And you'll be ridiculously glad you did.
Yeah, thank you so much. And one more thing I'll add into that is to have fun with it, right? This whole journey is meant to be fun. I know you're big on this too, but it's like we don't have to take things so seriously. We can dive into life fully and go all in. and make mistakes and fuck up and own our shit and forgive ourselves, forgive others. We can love fully. Like we can literally go all out in this lifetime and just go through life learning from these experiences that we go through and not thinking that anything went wrong, because all of it's perfect for our human evolution of what our souls are here to learn in this lifetime. It's so perfect, all of it.
Yeah, and if you can laugh at the worst times and
Yeah.
appreciate them, I'll just say, I don't want to say who it is. I wouldn't say their name, obviously, but I had a breakup in the last 10 years where it just went so bad. And I knew for 6 months, I'm like, this has to end. Like, I know this is going to come to an end, but I'm comfortable, kind of like we talked about earlier. And it just had a night where it just went, just like exploded. Just went to like shit. Like, I was like, oh my gosh. And I just started laughing at some point. I was like, wow, I couldn't have planned much of a worse breakup if I tried. It's really funny to be me. And people are crazy. I'm like, I might as well laugh at my own house burning down rather than cry. Like, wow, this is funny. My house is on fire. Like, to laugh at your pain, to appreciate it, to have fun, to make a joke at yourself. I make jokes about myself constantly, but yeah, have fun. Life is really boring without fun. I don't
Yeah.
care if you're a young, old man, woman, what color you are, what country you live in, what religion you believe in, or whatever. Don't believe in religion. Like, have some fun and laugh.
Yeah. Yeah. Laugh. Take the time to feel it too, because we really like, back to the topic of hanging on. When we don't allow those emotions to process, they stay there for us to later process, which is huge to
And it might come at
understand.
an inconvenient time, like then pushing this down, pushing this down. Oh,
Right?
now it's
Yeah,
coming.
the beach ball underwater and then it just explodes, right? So it's like learning how to have this balance between all of it. But like you said, Phil, like we're all figuring shit out as we go. We're
Yeah,
just, we're
we
just
all,
learning and growing all together.
if you look at, I mean, a Tom Brady, a Cristiano Ronaldo, these are some of the best in the world. They're teachers and they're leaders, but the reason they're the best is because ultimately they've been students for decades.
Yeah.
And when a mom, a dad, a business person, a coach, what it really doesn't matter to always realize you're still kind of figuring it out, or even winging it to a degree. Going, I'm gonna keep. I know where I'm going. I'm gonna keep doing the best. I'm gonna try different things. I'm not gonna stop. But yeah, to have a bit more. I call it like gentle strength, a bit more gentleness with yourself that creates more strength. And like Albert says, to fail faster. Totally.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and the power of mentors as well, right? Because I just want to bring that in as well, because even like with ayahuasca and all of these other things, like we can bring up the awareness of what's within ourselves, but the repatterning of it, if you have mentorship for that repatterning piece, like it's massive and it really accelerates and speeds up the embodiment of what it is that you're wanting to create in your life. So don't ever feel like having a mentor is something that means you're not good enough or anything like that, because oh my gosh, man, I've had mentors. Like ever since I went on this journey, I've had a mentor and it's allowed me to accelerate. I know you can attest to this as well, but either people in your network that you can chat with, or having like actually a coach or a mentor that you're working with in whatever area of life that you're wanting to grow in, because it really does help when we're creating these new behavioral patterns. Like it can sometimes be scary to take those new actions or behaviors that we've never taken before, like even like you were saying, Phil, about women sometimes, like, and I can relate to this as well, like bringing up new conversations or starting a conversation with your partner. Like there can be some fear in creating new behavioral patterns, but when we have somebody there with us to support us and love us and nurture us through that experience, then it's like we get to like, and I always say this about my clients, is like I get to hold them and like support them and nurture them as they go through it until they have the confidence and the courage to go off on their own and do it. So it's just like having that person there to hold you as you're building that new muscle of whatever it is that you're wanting to create in your life.
Yeah, it's huge. People need support.
Mm-hmm.
Support in terms of, I mean, Albert said that the power of association. Like, who are your friends?
Yeah.
You know, there's a men's group in Atlanta. There's part of one, I believe he runs it. And then just having people like, I'm sure you said that too, Laura, like whatever it is, the number's kind of irrelevant. Like I spend X a month on coaching and I want to spend 10X. And some people, they can't even, they think, how can you do that? Or why would you do that? Or people even think if you spend $500 or $5,000 for a seminar, well, that's such a waste of money. And
Yeah.
you go to some of these things, you go, wait a minute, I learned more. I mean, I remember that. I went to one seminar where I learned more in one day about relationships than I did in 27 years. And I
Yeah.
was like how can someone even produce that? Like But yeah, but it's really synergistic. You brought up a good point about ayahuasca. If you take an event, a retreat, a seminar, and you just do that, they're great. Or if you just take coaching, they're great. When you combine those things,
Yeah,
the benefits I've found are extremely synergistic. Where you take some
massive.
ayahuasca is kind of a big boom experience. A seminar can be that way depending on the seminar. Then you have someone that can hold your hand, love you, support you, push you, challenge you, question you to grow for the next 12 weeks. And it's like, oh, wow, I got, 10% growth from this, 10% growth from this. But when I did them together, I got 80% growth.
Yeah.
So it's so synergistic in terms of the growth benefit.
Yeah. Yeah. It's huge. They're literally like they're investments that you'll be reaping the rewards from for the rest of your life. Right. It's like, it's funny whenever people make money excuses, I just laugh because it's like, I know even I've made those money excuses before, but then when you take a look at your MasterCard statement or you take a look at your bank account where your money is actually flowing, it's not a lack of money. It's a lack of where your resources are actually flowing to, which is huge. And it's funny because I'm reading this book right now called Soul of Money. And I just went to find this because this one statement, it says, in our relationship with money, it is using money in a way that expresses our integrity, using it in a way that expresses value rather than determines value. And I was like, yo, that statement is like so powerful because it does. It's like where our money goes is showing our integrity, and like that is expressing where we are holding value in our life.
Yes.
Right. If we are putting money toward, and this is just an example, no judgment whatsoever, because have done this in the past, but just going to the bar and drinking every single weekend and doing that, it's like that's where I'm putting my value. Like that, like what does that say about your integrity with yourself? Right. And it can be a hard lesson for people to learn, but take a look at where your money's going, and that will show where your values actually are. And that's what Phil was saying in the beginning about this is like the biggest shift for this is understanding we can shift our values and our beliefs, which will then shift everything in our life because that's our operating system. That's what
Yeah,
we're operating from is where our values are.
exactly.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, that's actually let's see, those are my new values I'm working on for this week.
Amazing.
Values are so important. I mean, your values are kind of the foundation or the foundation of the big chunk of your psychological blueprint of you. Most people make it easy to feel bad and hard to feel good. When you change your values and you condition new values, it's literally like installing a new, or beliefs too. Installing, it may take a couple months, a couple weeks, installing a new computer program to go, oh wow, I don't have to do anything. This is pretty much a new operating system now. I'm
Yeah.
virus. I'm
Yeah.
faster.
Exactly. Yeah.
Perhaps.
Huge. Oh, you're so welcome. Thanks for coming on here. And thanks to everybody that was in the comments here with us. We appreciate you, all the value that you're bringing. And Phil, where is it that people can get in contact with you? Obviously, you guys can all follow Phil, Relationship Coach Phil on Instagram.
Relationship Coach Phil on Instagram, or I just have to make a couple tweaks in the next couple of weeks with my website designer, or I have a website, relationshipcoachphil.com. I was having a couple little glitches before, but that'll be by sometime in August. It'll be totally back up. But yeah, Instagram is the best way. Thank you so much for asking.
Amazing. And Phil has so many amazing videos on his Instagram. So definitely go check it out. Watch those videos. He's hilarious. He's fun. Like, obviously, you guys know that. He's just amazing. So thank you so much for just coming on here and having this conversation. And just thanks for being passionate about this topic. Oh
For
my God.
sure.
Literally,
I'm no longer passionate. I'm obsessed. It's another level. Like,
yeah, totally.
changed in the last couple of years to obsession.
Yeah. Well, I'm so happy that you're obsessed with this topic because I know I've learned so much from our conversations together, and I know we'll definitely be having you back on the podcast to chat more about this. But I appreciate you so much. I'm so grateful for you as a friend and as a mentor when it comes to understanding men and relationships because it's already changed my life so much. But I love you so much, and thanks so much for being on here.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You are so welcome. And for anybody either listening to the podcast or on here, so this episode is going to be live on Monday morning on Reignite Your Soul podcast, which you can find on Apple or Spotify, all the platforms. And if you found value in this episode, please share it out. If you want to leave a review or a testimonial of your experience with that, then please feel free to do that on Apple or Spotify. It just helps it to get it out to more people. But I love you so much. Thank you so much for being here with me. I appreciate you. And we'll see you on the next episode. Bye. Thanks so much, Phil.
Ciao. Feliz
Bye.
dia.
See
Bye.
ya.